So, I'm gonna be honest here and explain that I'm not really sure where to start on this one. This is not a game that I'd be reviewing were it up to me. It is decidedly not up to me, as the case may be. This is one of those requests that I get, that I have to do, you know, because reasons. And I just don't feel comfortable reviewing this game, because, you know, I went in and I was like, I'm gonna give this a chance, you know, it's typically not my kind of game, for a variety of reasons, but don't worry. I have everything under control. Everything's gonna be fine. I'm gonna go in, and I'm gonna play it, and I'm gonna be like, oh, this game ain't so bad. It'll be alright. And I'm gonna have fun. None of that happened, really. I mean, I did play the game, that happened. Everything after it didn't happen, though. And I know, as soon as I make this review, people are gonna be like, how dare you say bad things about this. But honestly, I don't really have anything bad to say. I have like exactly one major complaint with the game, which ruined the whole thing for me. But that's gonna be enough, because, you know, God forbid I don't like something, because that's the worst thing in the world. Of course, I'm speaking from experience, because every time I go into a review where it's a popular game that I don't like, even when I admit the game is good, I just don't like it, that's not good enough for people. No. Darkness has to like everything everybody else likes. And he won't. He will never do that.
In your mind.
Okay, let's just stop beating around the bush. Super Mario RPG is a really popular game for many people, for a variety of reasons, and not all those reasons are unjustified. See, the game in itself is actually pretty decent for what it is. It's a Mario game, but it was developed by Squaresoft, you know, the guys behind Final Fantasy, because, you know, RPG, and I guess the idea was that you guys know RPGs, so make this Mario game, and they did, and actually they did a really damn good job. There's a lot of things about it that people will like. The graphics look pretty decent for Super Nintendo. The music is incredibly memorable, probably one of the best things about it, I would say. The dialogue is funny, witty, and interesting. The storyline is just as good. And overall, the core game mechanics are decent enough to keep you entertained. So, why don't I like it? I just said nothing but praise for the game. And I know, right? Like, we're starting this off, and Darkness is like, oh my goodness, this game is really good, and you should definitely try it, and you know, what's wrong with that? But then at the same time, you're like, but Darkness, you don't like the game. Darkness, why don't you like the game? Because it's boring. Boring, I would say. Okay, right now, as I speak, someone is down in those comments. They just paused the video, right? After I said that. They're down in the comments. Saying a comment along the lines of, how dare you say that about Super Mario RPG? It is not boring. You're a liar. You're wrong, Darkness the Curse, if that is your real name. In fact, you're so wrong that you deserve to go to hell for being so wrong. That is a comment that will happen as a result of what I just said. I'm used to it. Don't worry. You don't have to say anything to the guy. Just let him go. Just let him go. Okay, he's fine. Let me try to explain this. Okay, the problem with Super Mario RPG is that it's just it is what it is and nothing more. I guess I was just sort of expecting something more interesting, like in the Paper Mario series. You know, they have things to mix things up every so often. You know, that changes the mechanics to make them more fun. But the problem with Super Mario RPG is that it's dated. It is your typical JRPG and nothing more. It's nothing less than that. It does everything a JRPG should do and does it well, but it doesn't do anything else. It's just a normal, standard, typical, everyday. You could make it an RPG Maker RPG. Like, that is how basic it is. And I think that's what my problem is with it. Now, you might be saying, well, what about the button press system? And yes, you're right. You know, during combat, you can press buttons to make your attacks hit more. And there are almost a precursor to QuickTime events within the combat. South Park, the game, had a very similar mechanic. And there, it felt generic too. However, the difference here is the Super Mario RPG was released during a time where this sort of mechanic really hadn't been seen, at least not that often. Like, it wasn't standard back then. So, at the time when this game was made, I would argue that this is probably the most innovative thing about it. And in fairness, yes, back then this would have made the game very interesting and very unique. So, I'm not going to sit here and say that the game was bad, because back when it was released, I probably would have loved it. My main issue with not having fun with this game is that I'm playing it now, in 2014. And it doesn't hold up to 2014. And I know I always say you should always compare games to other games that came out at its time. You should judge it based off when it was released, not how it's held up. Because that's not fair. Tomb Raider, for example, one of my favorite game series of all time. The first 5 games aged like milk. Oh my god. They're just old. They're very old. I would not recommend them to a new player. I'd say give them a try, but I would of course warn you that they're kind of old. A lot of games suffer from the same problem. When I said the first Devil May Cry had aged badly, I got flamed for it. But you know what? I stand by that shit, okay? Because it has. It really, really has. And a lot of games have. It happens, you know, guys. I mean, games that were released back certain times when certain technological leaps hadn't been made and certain things hadn't been thought of. I mean, things get old. And that's sort of the case with Super Mario RPG. Back when it was released, it was a really fun game. Something that you could pick up and play, and, probably would have enjoyed it back then had I owned a Super Nintendo when I was a kid, but I didn't. I was a Genesis kid. So, actually, now that I think about it, I don't think I played an RPG till I got a PlayStation, and that was Final Fantasy IX. So if I'm gonna compare, the game to the first RPG I got to play, that's just not fair. That's just not fair. That's not fair at all, and I know that. That's why I wouldn't have reviewed it otherwise. If it wasn't a request, I wouldn't have touched the game. Plus, it's Mario. Because the other thing about this game is that I feel like it was made to cater to Mario fans. Like, if you're just an RPG fan, I'm not sure how well you get into the game, because it's Mario. If you like Mario, you're gonna love it, but I don't love Mario. So, the Mario thing really not appealing to me. Not helping, I gotta say. And if it makes you think, whoa, did you like the Sonic RPG? What about Sonic Chronicles? And you know what? No, I didn't. Because that game felt old as shit too. I mean, yeah, it had the touchscreen going on, but it was the same kind of deal. It was actually almost literally the same kind of game as Super Mario RPG, except in Super Mario RPG's case, it was made back in the mid-90s, and not in, when did Chronicles come out, like 2010? Something like that? I mean, come on now. So let's take a step back real quick, before you're ready to flame me, those patient among you, that, are sitting there and calling me an asshole for not liking the game. Let's take a step back, and I'm gonna use my brain that I have. Most people have them, but, on the internet, I would be surprised. It's actually a rare case, I find, to find a person with a functional brain. I'm gonna use my brain to set myself, if I were playing the game in the mid-90s, to see what I thought of it. And you know what, everything I said in the beginning of this review holds up. Graphics, sound, gameplay, it's all good, it's all fun, and you can definitely get into it. I still stand by the fact that I wouldn't necessarily recommend the game if you're not a Mario fan. I think that's a very important part of the game. So you're gonna want to keep that in mind before you play it. On top of that, I do have another couple complaints with the game. First of all, the game can be very grindy at times, and by at times I mean way too often for me to tolerate. A lot of times the game will run into situations where you have to go back and grind, and that happens way too often in my opinion. Most well-made RPGs will limit grinding, but here it feels like it's almost part of the game sometimes. You might be saying, well, you can kind of level up as long as you hit enemies on your way to the boss, and yes, I understand that, but I don't know, I felt like I was grinding way too often. Maybe that's just me. It didn't help that I was bored with the gameplay, but who knows? I'm just saying. Just so you know. The other issue is that, much like the South Park game, this is very much baby's first RPG. In terms of its mechanics, it's very easy. It is not that challenging, in my opinion. I mean, maybe if you like underlevel yourself, you can make it harder, but because the mechanics are so simple, it's not that hard to do well as long as you can time your button presses properly. If you can't, well, then the game's gonna be hard as shit. But if you can, then I would argue that the game almost plays itself sometimes. It depends. As long as you're at the proper level, you're not gonna have much of a problem. You could say the same thing about a lot of RPGs, I know, but I don't know. I felt like things were lacking in the difficulty department. But again, it's also a Mario game, and Mario games had never really been hardcore challenges, I would say. You know, unless you're talking about, like, certain ones, like Lost Levels, for example, the Japanese version of Mario 2. Yeah, that one was hard. Okay, I'll give it that one, but for the most part, Mario games are relatively easy overall, so I guess it's sort of a why this game isn't exactly the most difficult thing in the world. I will say, though, there seems to be a bit of a variety in the combat in terms of what you do. Certain environmental hazards happen during the game while you're in combat that you can manipulate. That's fun, and the spells are fun, the characters are interesting, the game's really funny. There's stuff to like here, it's just not for me. I guess is the best thing I could possibly say. Maybe if I were a bigger Mario junkie, you know, I would like it, but the only Mario I've ever really truly liked is Super Paper Mario. And the original Mario Brothers, and Mario 64 to a certain extent. That's it, really, for Mario with me. Everything else is alright, I don't think of them as bad, but Mario's never been my thing. I grew up on Sonic. It's sort of ingrained in my brain to be like, Sonic is better than Mario, even if that's not true anymore. At all. Have you played Sonic Boom? Because I have, and oh my god. The fuck, guys? What did you do? Like, this... The fuck? I want you to know that this is shit. And I'm gonna tell you about it one day. Not today, though. Today's not the day for that. Okay? Today is to tell you that Super Mario RPG hasn't aged that well. But it's a good game. So if you're a Mario fan, you should play it. And that's the review. Till next time, this is Darkness, and I bid you all a fond farewell.